right. Mr. Dale, you served in Vietnam and the Korean War. Is that right?
Yes, I did.
All right. So we just wanted to ask: were you drafted or enlisted? I mean, or did you recruit?
Volunteer.
I volunteered.
Volunteer.
I got drafted in the Army, but I wanted to go in the Air Force, so I went a week before I was supposed to go in the Army.
Okay. All right. So you joined the Air Force. So how was boot camp? How long did you stay in boot camp?
That was 2 months.
Did you what did you do there?
We did everything strenuous and followed orders, learned how to follow orders, learned how to drill, march, and military tactics. And we learned what a gas drill was. They put us through the gas chamber, and quite strenuous. And everything was very strict. Yes, sir. No, sir. No excuse, sir.
Were there any fun stories about boot camp? Do you have?
Well, if you called being told how stupid you was, that was, but it was all for a good cause. When we realized it afterwards, if you ever got captured and you had no training at all, it would be like suicide. But the training you get, it prepares you basically for, and teaches you discipline. And I think after I look back, I loved the military, and I spent a career in it, 20 years. Had a lot of good experiences, but the training, you'd never make it if you hadn't had the boot camp
training. All right. So after those 2 months, where did you first go? Overseas?
I went to tech school in Longview, Texas, Ledlow Technical Institute, on how to build these antenna towers and how to put up antennas, communications, really, and maintenance. They taught us welding. They taught us how to search out electronic problems in communications, and mainly with building towers at Ledlow Technical Institute, which now is in Longview, Texas, which is it's a university now. And then after that, after we graduated from the tech school, I went to Japan on a troop ship with 10,000 troops on board, which was a great experience. I'd never seen anything bigger than a lake in Virginia, and to get on a body of water that takes you 12 days to cross in a ship going 35 mile an hour was with 10,000 people aboard was just unreal. And then I went to Korea, and that was my first encounter.
What'd you first think when you stepped foot in Korea? What'd you think about?
Well, that was right in the middle of the war, and I couldn't believe the devastation and the way people were surviving. The houses they were living in with mud and grass, and they used bottles or cans, anything to make. A lot of it had been destroyed, and people had been dispersed, and it sort of looked sad to me.
So where were you stationed in
Well, I was all over. I was with the installation engineers putting in communication equipment, or the
Just in case.
AACS. Air Force was AACS, Airways and Air Communication Service. And, well, that was before the Vietnam deal started. And it was quite an experience. We had field kitchens that we ate. We'd cook the food outside, small areas, groups, which was quite interesting. Everything was new to me.
And how was life in Korea, like when you slept and stuff? Just like the overview.
Well,
Stuff.
first thing I learned was to keep your equipment pretty well secure, because somebody would steal it. I slept with my boots on and my clothes a lot, keep somebody from stealing them. Not our own people, but people was devastated, you know.
And how long were you in Korea?
I was there off and on. I was TDY. I was stationed. My home base was in Japan.
Okay.
And we went over TDY to install equipment. Some of it would get destroyed, and we'd have to replace it, put up towers, and a lot of it was on poles, on like 60-foot poles. We put antennas up for communications, and we put control towers. We put equipment up in the control towers for communication to control the aircraft.
Did you do that in Vietnam as well? When you were communications?
No. In Vietnam, they put me into the photo mapping unit. But when I was in Korea, it was installation engineers, and it was we put in generators, diesel generators, and antennas and whatever. But in Vietnam, I was with the photo mapping group, which we was trying to get the longitude and latitude so you could put up, so they could put satellites up. And I went to Vietnam in '55, the year after the French got conquered. And so we went, they sent about 6 teams of us over there. We lived up in the mountains, isolated, four men to a station with a squad of Vietnamese soldiers, because the war hadn't started yet. And we was measuring distances on the Earth, which was giving them longitude and latitude, so that they put a satellite up, they knew what position it was in. And we could measure a 600-mile line from A to B within 12 inches of accuracy.
Wow.
And I maintained the generators to run the HIRAM, the radar, and the transmitter receivers, all electronic gear.
Let's see. Because so how long did you stay overseas?
I spent about 15 years overseas out of my 20 years in the service. But a lot of it was TDY. It's called temporary duty, TDY.
So after Korea, why did you continue to stay in the Army?
Well, because every time something come up new that we needed to, they'd send me to school, and we learned. That's one thing about the military. They didn't let you operate equipment unless you was trained on that equipment. And that's something I really liked, was to be taught so I knew what I was doing, and everything was quite proficient and effectively controlled. And then I was also on the guided missile project in out of Cape Canaveral, Florida.
Yeah.
There was a team of us went down to the Bahamas and put up homing beacon towers. 6 of us, and we couldn't stay but 6 months at a time, so we spent 6 months, then we went back and spent 6 more. So we was in Vietnam. In the Bahamas, Grand Bahama, Luther, San Salvador. We put up homing beacons so they could. They was flying like Matador missiles and crashing them into the water. That's when the guided missile program first started, and they fly them out of Cape Canaveral down on the downrange, and we spent a year down there putting up the communication systems. And we were there when the man first orbited the Earth, made one round, and which was quite interesting.
All right, I may hop back, so where were you born? Where are you from?
I was born in Wise County, Wise, Virginia. Southwest Virginia.
How was life there? Is it just like
great?
Okay. And how old were you when you first?
Well, when we left there, I left there when I was a year old, but I've been back a lot. My people bought a farm out here at Free Union, and they moved out and brought me out here with them. So that's where I was raised, here at Free Union, on a nice farm.
I didn't ask this, but how old were you when you volunteered?
I was 20.
20, okay. All right. All right, so we're going to go after the war, but how did your family feel about this when you got home?
They was proud of me.
Yeah.
Very pleased. And they kept up with me all the time I was in there. Of course, a lot of my people had served in the military. A lot of them were pilots.
Did they send you mail or anything?
Oh, yeah, we got mail.
Good.
So it wasn't hard to communicate with your family?
No. It was all, we didn't have these cell phones and all that. It was writing letters. I'd always write them a letter. Very, very seldom you ever call. It had to be emergency, really, if it's overseas and make a call.
And what did you do after the war, like after your 20 years in service?
I went to work for a corporation, and I worked there 23 years and retired from that.
Awesome. Okay.
So I've retired 3 times now. I retired from the Air Force, and Corporation, and Social Security. But I loved the military. I loved it.
All right. That's all the questions I have. Some other good questions.
I think we covered everything. Unless he has a question.
You got some questions for me?
I'm still trying to think of.
Ask me anything you want to.
Were there any memories you had? Just
a lot of memories. Full of memories.
Were there any like good stories that you tell to people?
Well, yeah, I spent 6 months on Bikini Island after the hydrogen bomb was put off, and they had never been able to put the natives back on there because of the radiation. But they sent myself and a civilian out of the Army Map Service to Bikini Island, and we spent 6 months there ourselves. And I also, during the Korean War, I was sent to Eniwetok with a team to put up antennas for the test of the hydrogen bomb, and spent about 6 months there doing that. Then that was put off, I think, in 54, 55, and then in 57 I was sent over there to Bikini to spend, myself and a man from Army Map Service. He was a civil servant, wasn't in the military, but he had been. And we spent 6 months there together and worked at night. And we couldn't eat coconuts or drink any water that was originally there, or catch any fish or go swimming because of the radiation was so high. So that's a good story that a lot of people.
It was just you two.
Just two of us. Just two of us on that island.
So how did you guys like protect yourselves from the radiation?
Pardon?
How did you guys like protect yourself from the radiation?
We didn't protect. They said it was no problem. That we was told. That's what we were told. That it was no problem. We had a dose meter we wore, and I turned that in when I got back, and I never did hear about it. And I went and checked on it, and they said it was broke. So I never did know if it detected anything. And I'm still alive, and I'm 85 now. So I guess I made it.
Yeah.
So were any of your other family members, like your father or grandparent, in any other wars?
My uncle was in World War I.
Okay.
And I had several of my cousins. And my brother was in the Marine Corps during the Vietnam deal. And my sister's husband was in the Marine Corps for 35 years. And I had several cousins that was in the military on both sides, my mother's side and my father's.
Did you keep in touch with your people you met after the war?
Some of them, and I still do. We've had reunions, and it's been great. It's quite a close knit. Yeah, we get Christmas cards, and so we keep up with. And also, I belong to a photo mapping. I was in that photo mapping for 9 years, and I'm a life member of the photo mapping club, which keeps up to date with all the people. Got the names, and they send us a little pamphlet about every 6 months. We get a pamphlet, brings us up to date on what's happening. But and what that did, that information that we got, the accurate measurements, when you know what the GPS is, okay, that's what that came out of that, and these satellites are controlling your computers, and your cell phone, and the GPS. That's the reason it can take you right to your door. And that's what that 600 mile, 12-inch accuracy. Which I thought was really an interesting project. I felt proud to have served in that unit. And the 1370th photo mapping, you can look it up on the computer, and it's got stories in there. It's got my picture in it. Got stories in there of the 1370th, and I was in the 1374th. So if you get to 1370th, 1370,
Alright.
and then TH, yeah, and photo mapping.
I'll look it up.
If you look that up, and then the 1374th is the squadron that I was in. That was ground station, and we lived out in the boondocks on mountains. But most time they wouldn't let us have less than 3. We had to have 3 people because if something happened, they needed a third one there to help us, which is an odd bunch. You know, if you got to lift something, one's got to carry more than the other 2. It sort of, but we tried to have 4, at least 4 people, but that was the largest amount we could have. And it was a worldwide mission, so I spent time in Africa, South America, Iceland, Philippines, Australia, New Zealand. I was in many countries, and we had a big project in Ethiopia, Africa, which was very interesting. The people, very educational. I got to shake hands with Haile Selassie when he was president there then. So the military, I'll tell you, military is something to think about if you're going to make a career. You can retire at 20 years and get paid the rest of your life, get Medicare. It's quite an honor, and you're helping your country, furnishing security.
So what was the main reason you joined?
I just had a feeling for the military for years. I always thought something that drove me to like it, but I always liked the Air Force because I had my cousins. They had airplanes and they flew, and then my cousin was Jimmy Dale. He flew bombers during World War II, and that just sort of fascinated me. I always liked the Air Force. And it looked like a good thing to do, and it turned out to be one of the best things ever happened to me. Learned a lot, done a lot, saw a lot. You know, back then you didn't travel much. A lot of people never. You can't imagine not having automobiles. I rode horses a lot, but we traveled on. Everybody didn't have a car. Dad had a Model T Ford, which would run about 30 mile an hour. And there wasn't anything like the super highways till after World War II. But we, you know, seeing things and traveling was sort of unheard of. And I know it was fascinating to me when I got getting out into the world and found out there was people in the world that was very educational, very, very educated and interesting people, and could do a lot of things. And the difference in the people, like they look different. Like the Japanese, they're different complexion, and then in Spain, I went to Spain, spoke different languages, and then I spent a lot of time out in the jungle with the natives on the Philippines and Borneo.
Did you have a lot of free time to
Yeah, you had free time.
Yeah, what'd you do in your free time?
Well, it's too numerous to mention. And I'll tell you, we had a good education program, and I spent a lot of time in vocational schools when I was in the States, I would sign up for a program to go, and that's learning a trade by experience, and that's what I didn't go to college, so all my education was trade skills, and I think that's something that's lacks today. That we really, our young people need, a lot of them need to do that more than college. Learn a good trade skill. I've retired 3 times, never asked for a job. I've always been the recruiter was after me to get in the Air Force, so I didn't beg him to go in. And then when I got out, I was asked to go to work for this corporation. I went as a technician. That I did things that I learned in the Air Force, and it turned out great.
So what corporation did you work for?
Morton Frozen Food, and that's what it was when I went there. And they got Del Monte, and they built. But I worked in the refrigeration department. I rebuilt the compressors, and we had Freon, ammonia, and so I was a technician in that field. Anything else?
I can't think of anything.
You got anything for me?
I covered everything. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're quite welcome. It's really good seeing you boys. You might. I hope you all think about the service. It won't do you any harm. It's a good background for you. Yeah, ConAgra was the last. See, it started off Morton Frozen Food. Then they sold to Del Monte, and then ConAgra bought all that. One of the biggest food sources in the world. Frozen food. What are y'all interested in doing in when you're seniors now?
No, we're well, I'm in 10th grade. He's a freshman and a junior, right?
I'm a junior.
You're a junior. What school?
Charlottesville High School.
Oh, okay. Yeah, all of you from Charlottesville, aren't you? Yeah. And you ever think about going in the military?
Yes, I have. My mother was in the Air Force. Actually,
Was she?
for 25 years.
25.
Yes, sir. She was the colonel.
Was she? Bless her heart.
Yes, sir.
So I didn't tell you anything wrong then, did I? She was in a good outfit.
Yes.
It's a lot of technical. The Air Force got a lot of technical stuff. The aircrafts are so complicated now. Precision. And your dad, was he in the military?
No, he was a lawyer.
Lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good.
Just my mom. But I would like to either join the Air Force or go into the State Department.
Yeah. Well, you can't go wrong.
Yeah.
The Air Force is really I spent 3 years on Guam and had the B-52s. That's when the Vietnam War, there's flying round trip bombing every day. 3 sorties. They carried 30 tons of bombs on a load. And you can't go wrong. We just went to an introduction of all the high schools that had about 80, I think it was 86, volunteered for the Marines, the Air Force, the Army, Coast Guard, Navy. At the county office building about 2-3 weeks ago, they recruited them, and which is seniors, and so as soon as they graduate, they'll go right into the boot camp. You got anything else?
We got before the war.
After the war, during the war. That's pretty much it.
Yeah. It's not all, the wars are not all fighting, you know. It's a lot of technical stuff.